Good evening. George Washington was perhaps the single most important person to the cause of American independence from Great Britain and the establishment of the United States of America. As Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army and the first President of the United States, his guidance and influence in winning independence, setting up the government, and establishing the country were critically important in the success of the American nation. Whether or not Washington was in fact a Christian is a point of debate, but it cannot be denied that he demonstrated Christian behavior. This theme is plainly evident in how Washington ardently believed that Providence had brought victory and independence to the United Colonies and thus would favor and bless the new American Republic. That last quote was from Jim Pingle in his dissertation, Providential Leader, The Influence and Impact of Religion on George Washington. Uh, with this in mind, the research question that I was looking at for this project was how were Christian principles and ethics revealed in Washington's behavior? So I stated that a strong character and firm foundation of values and morals based on Christian principles and ethics were instrumental in guiding Washington successfully through the trials of the Revolutionary War and as the first president of the United States. In this paper, I'm going to investigate how and when these principles and ethics were influenced Washington during the war and as the first president. I'll look at his personal life to see some of the uh, developmental events influenced him from an early era, as well as some of the major challenges and crises that affected him during this key period. I'll also talk about a little bit about a review of some of his activities between the war and the time that he became president. Part of that was when he went back home to Mount Vernon, but also as basically the leader of the Constitutional Convention in 1787. Finally, I'll do a summary review of how these principles and ethics were revealed in these critical times, as I've stated, and the importance of this influence not only on Washington, but in the country as a whole. Uh, as a commander-in-chief, Washington faced many challenges during the war, just keeping the Army together, most importantly. He was a big supporter of the chaplains in the Army and the importance that they had on the morale of the soldiers. Uh, and again, as I stated earlier, whether or not he was a Christian, a professed Christian, is a matter of debate. But you can't deny that he demonstrated Christian behavior and he promoted Christian behavior in others throughout the Army. As Ron Chernow, one of the prime biographers of Washington, stated that this theme is evident in how Washington construed favorable events in the war as reflections on Providence and transforming him from an actor in a human drama into a tool of heavenly purpose. So even after the war, uh, Washington continued to believe that Providence would lead the United States into a great country. And this belief filled him in every sense of the word, with a personal drive and determination to remain a man of principle and character in everything that he did. He held the Army together during its most dire moments in the war. He stepped down at the end of the war, relinquishing command of the very tool he could use to take control and become the new king of America. And he reluctantly accepted the mantle of leadership again in peace as leader of the country and stepped down again at the end of his term, uh, handing over the reins to a new president. Finally, the research that I'm using for this is based on a collection of scholarly articles from a variety of the databases that we have available to us through the Jerry Falwell Library. I'm using a number of secondary sources, some key biographies, Ron Chernow, one that I mentioned earlier, the dissertation by Jim Pingle, and a number of other books that have been written on Washington. There's literally hundreds of them out there, but I've selected a few that I think are some of the better ones available. And finally, I'm using some of his own writings that speak to the character of the man himself, and writings from people like Thomas Jefferson, Thomas Paine, that also speak to the character and behavior of Washington in this most critical time. So I'm really enjoyed doing this, and I've enjoyed doing these video blogs with you this term, and I look forward to seeing you again in the future. Thank you very much.